I watched a YouTube video this week that made me shout on my phone so much. Such utter rubbish, such ill-informed advice, such bad suggestions for modifications to do that I just had to make my own video to put the record straight. The fact that they had 20,000 views on this video disturbs me, because there's 20,000 people potentially that have taken this advice as being the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to do. I'm not going to name the video, but I'm going to put the record straight now and we'll move on from there. So I'm going to take you through the modifications that actually work on your Subaru to take a daily driver to improve the performance, make it better, make it quicker, make it safer, and generally a better car. I'm not going to go into specific brands because, you know, there's many different brands and most of them are really good, or most of them are pretty good anyway. But I will talk to you about the things that should be the top of your list and the things that possibly shouldn't be. I've done other videos on mods to avoid or busting Subaru myths, and I've done 2 of those videos, but this time I'm going to go through things that actually work, using examples of cars that my good friends at Triton Motorsport in Bournemouth have got in at the moment, and some customer cars of mine, and possibly even the Forester STI. The Legacy Blitzen isn't ready for bits to be bolted on yet, but that will happen very soon, hopefully. So let's get started. So what should be the top of your list? For me, the first priority is making sure the car's safe and able to be driven spiritedly. To do that, the obvious solution is brakes. The standard brakes on the WX aren't really up to much. The STI, they're okay, but on the WX they're not up to much. So from a WX owner to move up to STI level brakes would be a good upgrade, a good modification, because that's going to give you the stopping power for the equivalent STI version. For an STI, aftermarket upgrades exist for those, from APs to K-Sports to Alcons, many different types and makes of brakes that will all improve the braking, make it safer, make it able to stop quicker and do so repeatedly. Because the standard brakes, the thing that happens with those is that they get too hot. The brake pads, the standard brake pads, don't really like excessive usage, and you know, they fade. As part of the brake upgrade, moving away from the rubber lines from the standard setup to braided lines give you a much better pedal feel, much safer, and you know, are able to cope with the heat that excessive braking can cause. Again, a good upgrade in my opinion. Number 2 on the list, you know, and I keep going through this with customers that come to see me, is making sure that the car is safe and able to handle properly. And that moves from like maintenance, making sure that the shocks are working, to upgrading the anti-roll bars to make it a little bit tighter turning in and cornering. You don't have to go down the coilover route. In fact, in a recent video, you know, I talked about coilovers having ruined, or been one of the steps to ruining my car. On my Forester STI, for example, I fit PEDAs because they are a great compromise between good road holding, good handling and comfort. Because at the end of the day, it's a car that you need to enjoy, and in the UK with the roads the way they are at the moment, you need a car that's a little bit more compliant. If it was a track-only car, then yeah, maybe coilovers would be a good option. But I'm just talking about daily drivers here. Number 3 is often overlooked as far as a modification, because it isn't really a modification. You know, making sure that your car is running right, making sure that it's got the right oil, the right amount of oil, the right fuel, the right coolant, the right amount of coolant, no leaks. You know, maintenance is so important with Subarus. They really like to bite you if you forget to do the things that you need to do. Looking after the maintenance, setting a schedule for things like cam belts, for brake pad, changing the oil regularly. You know, Subaru suggests, well, say 6,000 miles. You know, if you're using it hard, then maybe shorten that time period, but make sure that it's up together. Make sure that the spark plugs are the right spark plugs, that their gap's right. You know, these things make the car run better, make it run more efficiently, make it make more power, or help it make more power. Making sure that the tyres are good, making sure that they're in good condition, that they're a good make, that they've got plenty of tread on, that they've got the right pressures in there. All these elements make your car better, make your Subaru better. In the other video, they talked about changing cams and stupid things like that. They're completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary until you're going above 500 horsepower. Most people with Subarus, over the course of the last 17 years that I've been tuning Subarus, don't want to get to that level. And I wouldn't recommend that people even try to get to that level. It's expensive and you end up with a car that you probably don't like, probably don't enjoy. The most enjoyment for a Subaru comes around that 350 to 400 mark for a new age 2001 onwards Subaru, and around 300 to 350 for a GC8 Subaru. You know, they're great cars, great balance at that point. So changing cams is not necessary. Don't do it. It ruins the car unless you're after really high power. But that's not what this video is about. The fourth thing is change the fuel pump every now and again. Probably 4 years, I would say. Change the fuel pump. Pop a new Walbro 255 in there, just to make sure that the fuel supply going through to the engine is enough. The worst thing you can do is let your Subaru run lean. They really do not like running lean. So every 4 years or so, maybe when you're doing the cam belt, pop a new fuel pump in there. Just helps it. If you're not sure how to do the fuel pump, I did a video on that a little while back. Search that out. I'll possibly pop a link in the description below. Number 5, like any turbo engine, like any engine really, you know, they're an air pump. The more air you can get through the engine, the more power it'll make. It's quite simple. Put more air in, add the right amount of fuel, makes power. But part of that is actually getting the air out of the engine. So the best performance mod to start with is a freer flowing exhaust. Quite simply, you know, the standard exhaust system is very restrictive. You know, you might have 1, 2, maybe 3 catalytic converters in there, a couple of silencers, and all of that stops the air going through the turbo quickly, stops it making the boost that it wants to make, stops it making power, dilutes the sounds of the Subaru. So a more free flowing exhaust really helps. A 2.5-inch exhaust is fine if you're up to 350 horsepower, but beyond that, probably a 3-inch exhaust is the best way to free up the performance of the engine. A sports cap, great option, means it's road legal, means it will pass MOT tests in the UK. Obviously you need to get them hot before they work properly, so before an MOT test, you know, give it a good spirited drive down the road and it will, you know, sail through. Well, it should do. Freer flowing exhausts don't need to be loud. So volumes or the decibel rating of an exhaust is something that's a personal taste. You know, I'm quite old now, so I don't like them too loud. I do a lot of miles daily driving this Subaru Forester STI on the road. Do about 25,000 miles a year in it. So I don't like them too loud, but it doesn't stop it making power if it's a little bit quieter. On the flip side, you know, louder isn't more powerful, can annoy the neighbours, can give the police warning that you're approaching or doing something that you shouldn't be doing. So have a think about that before you put something too loud on. The 6th element, the 6th modification, the 6th thing you should do, in my opinion, is, you know, a turbo generates a lot of heat. Squashing the air generates heat. Hot air is expanded and doesn't contain as much oxygen as colder air. So fitting a intercooler that is better than your standard one will help it make more power, or at the very least will help it be safer for the amount of power that it's producing. So if you're in a WRX, you know, a good option is to upgrade to the STI intercooler, so top mount intercooler. If you're in an STI, then there are larger top mount intercoolers available, or a front mount intercooler, which will, you know, the faster you drive will work better. And cold air makes power. So the intercooler option is a really good option to help the whole engine work safer and more efficiently and make more power. Number 7, you know, I tune Subarus for a living. It's what I've done for God knows how many years now. 17 years I've been tuning Subarus. Just Subarus, well, almost just Subarus. And the remap process, the retuning, the tuning, really helps bring all the elements together. Every Subaru is different, just like every person is different. So they all need something slightly different. Now, if you go into a clothes shop and buy an off-the-shelf suit, it's not going to fit you as well as something that's been made specifically for you. And that's why a Pro Tune or a custom remap will work better for your car than just a flash remap. The amount of those that I've seen on cars that have got engine issues is, you know, horrifying. So a good Pro Tune will bring all the elements together, bring it all together, safer, make more power, be more enjoyable, smoother, better to drive, and all round improve the Subaru. You could decide that you don't want a Pro Tuner to do it and you want to learn to do it yourself. That's great. I run an academy to help people learn to do that. By all means, join, have a look at that, see what's involved, and I can help you along with the other members of the academy to actually get the tune on your car correct and safe. These steps so far will take your car from being a normal standard Subaru, whether it be a WRX or an STI, and bring a WRX up to around 280, 290 horsepower, and an STI up to 330, 340 horsepower. But if you're wanting slightly more than that, you know, it's time to that point change the turbo. If you're a WRX owner, looking at the STI version turbos, the VFs is a really good option. They're readily available, pretty cheap, can buy them second hand, and they're a really good option to bolt on. You need to get it retuned or mapped for the turbo that you put on there, but it's a really good option to give you the next step of performance. So if you're in a WRX, instead of getting to 280, 290 horsepower, you know, then jump it up to 330, 340. Making it a good, usable, daily driver, average Subaru. If you're in an STI and you've already got the VF turbo on there, there are hybrid turbos available which use the same framework as the VF but have larger internals, so they'll flow more air, they'll squash more air into the engine. More air makes more power. So there's plenty of those options available. I did a video a while back with Fastline turbos, having their VF 400 turbos on a couple of cars, and both of those made 420, I think it was. So there's plenty of options available, but the next step is also crucial, because it's not just a case of putting a bigger turbo on. You need to have the right amount of fuel going through, and to do that you need, in most cases, larger injectors. The WRX injectors typically flow enough fuel to make 300, 310 horsepower. So if you wanted more than that, then an obvious upgrade is the STI injectors, the pink injectors or the dark blue from the Hawkeye. They will allow enough fuel to go through there to make maybe 380, maybe 400 horsepower. But they're readily available, cheap second-hand, and you know, easy to fit. If you're in an STI and you're wanting to get 400 plus, then you know, there's plenty of aftermarket injectors that will flow 750cc or 1000cc. They're a really good option to take it up. And all of those steps will make your car a better, safer, more fun Subaru to drive, more fun to own, because it's not breaking down. You know, you've got to bring all the bits together at the same time. Exhaust, fuel pump, intercooler, maybe turbo, maybe bigger injectors, but remapping all those together will bring it all together nicely, smoothly, safer, some cases more economically. The final thing isn't really a modification, but it's kind of common sense. Listen to your car, understand what's going on with the car, because it's problems that are ignored that really cause the biggest issues. You know, misfires that are driven through, rather than just checking the spark plugs, checking the coil pack, you know, checking the injectors, checking the fuel pump. You know, these things that are ignored tend to bite really badly. And from my experience, ignoring issues will only come back double. So there's 10 things. 10 things to improve your Subaru. 10 things to improve the performance, the safety, everything about your Subaru.